Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another figure unboxing video, and today I am ecstatic for what we have in store. We are going to be taking a look at the Figuarts Super Saiyan 4 Goku. This figure is not only one of my most highly anticipated Dragon Ball figures, frankly of all time, but is also one of the community's most highly anticipated Figuarts figures of all time, considering that this figure has been a long time coming. They actually showed prototypes of this figure many years ago. I'll see if I can't get the info on screen for how long ago that actually was. But it's been a while. This guy has been a very long time in the making, and when he was finally announced officially, people went nuts. People were so excited, and now we finally have him. I know I don't usually do Figuarts videos, but I do them occasionally when I was doing videos on the original Dokkan Assets channel, and not to mention, obviously, occasionally, I don't think mixing it up is necessarily a bad thing, especially when it is a figure as exciting as this one. But we are going to crack into him in a second here. Let's actually take a look at the packaging proper. Ooh, man. I'm very glad as well that they waited for this figure, because from the original prototypes until how he looks now, you are going to see that they absolutely knocked it out of the park with the Super Saiyan 4 look. They definitely improved it a lot from how the original images of this guy looked. I think, at least from everything that we've seen up until this point, this guy looks exactly like Super Saiyan 4 Goku, which is really cool to see, because obviously having character-accurate figures is what we strive for in our Dragon Ball figures, and not to mention, obviously, for Figuarts, with a posable figure, getting it as realistic as it can look is always a challenge, and pretty impressive, frankly. Alright, so we do have plenty of accessories. Before we take a look at those, though, let's go ahead and see what we have extras in the box. We got some goodies. So we have a little promotion for what is awesome about Figuarts. Great articulation, scene recreation, and optional parts. This is a pretty cool little pamphlet right here. And then obviously we have the Premium Bandai USA website on the back. Definitely check them out. Unfortunately, Premium Bandai isn't necessarily the best when it comes to shipping stuff out and sometimes quality control. However, this is the only place to get certain Figuarts figures, so it's them or nobody if you want certain Dragon Ball characters. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. So obviously this is just the instruction booklet on everything that you are going to need for Goku. Funny enough, it is in Japanese. They never have these in English, but thankfully they are pretty self-explanatory in terms of everything. Obviously the pictures are what you're probably going to be looking at anyway, even if you were reading this in Japanese. Funny enough, though, the caution is in English. They're like, oh yeah, we just got to make sure to cover our butts, but we're not actually going to help you. Alright, so obviously we have a lot of accessories to cover today. We have a ton of different things to take a look at. So first of all, before we even get into any of the accessories, let's go ahead and pop the clamshell off. Ooh, and we already have some of the... I didn't even realize it came with a Kamehameha ball, I'm going to be honest. Oh, and also... Oh no, that's a little bit unfortunate, unless it fell somewhere in the box. Let me not, like, spill it, but this right here, I think I am actually missing a piece. Oh! There it is. I have no idea where that just spawned in from. Maybe it fell into one of the other, like, ruts, but... Okay, well, never mind. Mine is not missing a piece. Cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and pull our boy out by the waist. If you are unfamiliar, Figuarts figures do have this little bit of plastic in the waist, so then that way, that is how you know that this is a official figure. Let's go ahead and get our actual light on, and we will pull that out of him. Let's go ahead and give that a little yank. Every time, you can tell as well by the quality of the plastic, because on fake Figuarts figures, which I have unboxed in the past off camera, they do have plastic that attempts to emulate this, but it's a lot more cheap. Alright, so here's our boy to start. There are a bunch of things that I'm noticing right out of the gate. before I even say anything in general. First of all, his face sculpt, minus the very weird headline, which we're going to take a closer look at in a second here. His actual face, I think, looks pretty good. At first, I was thinking a little bit odd, honestly, looking. But after taking a little bit of a closer inspection, I think that is pretty good, honestly. That is very close to Super Saiyan 4 Goku, I would say. They definitely did a good job with that, I would say. The hair is also fantastically sculpted. Definitely looks like Super Saiyan 4 Goku's hair for sure. I love the way that they did the bangs as well. Also very, very nice. Sorry about that, gang. I have no idea what just happened to the camera. Anyway, as I was saying, it is super cool that these pieces of the hair here are individually rather, articulated. I'm assuming that is because then, obviously, you can get a lot more traction and a lot more movement out of his neck-bending shenanigans there. Very, very cool. Now, I do like the hair sculpt overall, though I will say something about his face definitely is a little bit weird. Let's go ahead and take the bangs off. Yep, that just fell off right there. I'm wondering if it was just loose. Oh my gosh, that is horrifying. For some reason, it kind of looks like there is a strange, like, line on my copy of the face where there's sort of like, it should have gone up to the top, but then it, like, the plastic broke off or something like that. That is quite odd. Let's see if the other heads are like that, and I suppose while we are here, let's go ahead and take a look at all the different heads my man has to offer. We do have the smirking head, which obviously Super Saiyan 4 Goku does in a bunch of scenes. It kind of looks like, yeah, it does look like that there is that line as well. I was just looking at it above the camera. That same line that's sort of present there where, like, the plastic almost ends prematurely, like, right before it's supposed to end on the top, or like where it sort of meets the top of the plastic. I'm wondering if that's just because... Sorry about that, gang. I am not sure what happened to my camera. I literally just decided to cut again. But in the time that I've restarted my phone, I have discovered a couple of things. So for one, this is actually super cool. The pieces here for his hair are actually super highly articulated, and as you can see, I've actually lost one in my attempts of playing with the hair sculpt here. The hair is super duper articulated, which is a very, very nice thing to see. Oh no, it's actually just right here. I literally just didn't see it because it meshed in that well. That's crazy. Yeah, very cool that these are so highly articulated. I don't know why you would ever need that much movement out of them, but I love that it's here anyway. I have also discovered a couple of other things. So obviously we have his happy face that we will put on him, and I've discovered that that little, like, sort of kind of seems like a factory error is not actually an error at all. So let's go ahead. Obviously the pegs on his head, right, will match up with the pegs on the figure. You're going to want to stick those on the lower pegs. Get those in there as much as you can. Press his face in there as hard as you can. Obviously, be careful. It does look kind of funny without the top part of the hair there. That looks very odd. But I have found that that crease is actually there on purpose, which is very good to know. So you just stick the hairpiece back, and as you can see, it has kind of disappeared a little bit, but basically the point of that being there is so the hairline actually meshes with it. I think I can pull it apart and maybe you can see. It is kind of hard to tell, but basically right there you can kind of see it. That gap is meant to be there so it perfectly lines up with the hair. So it seemed that the face and the hair was just not pressed in enough on my copy when I initially took it out of the box, and that definitely looks a lot better than it did with that very ugly gap on his face. The smiling face looks really, really good. I absolutely love this, honestly. I think it is a great look for Super Saiyan 4 Goku for sure. I will show you the other faces when we do some more photography later. I'm not going to take everyone off and put it on him. So you will get to see all of these in action. But obviously, I do want to show you all of the different face sculpts. We do have a screaming face sculpt, which I think looks really good. Another thing that I feel like they really nailed here was the eyes. I think they did a great job of capturing not just the right amount of the red that is around Super Saiyan 4 Goku's eyes, but also the yellow part of Super Saiyan 4 Goku's eyes. I think that they did a really, really great job with that. Here is the gritting teeth face. Very, very good job on all these sculpts. I think they look really, really close to how he looks in the anime. Again, you will see more of that when we actually take some pictures of a man at the end. Let's fix this problem, though, and then we will talk a little bit about the articulation, and then we will get into the hand sculpt. So obviously here, we do have the tail piece, which I have to say in terms of the sculpting of this figure, I think they did a fantastic job of sculpting his fur. We'll take a look at it in a second. But obviously, just looking at it on the tail, the actual fur on the tail looks really, really nice. I think they did a very good job getting the intricate details on the fur there. So this should just go in here. I'm assuming it's like a straightaway. This is kind of hard because whenever you have a peg that is this small, trying to put it in, let's get Goku's arms up. Whenever you're trying to put it into this small of a space, it is always quite difficult. And you also want to be careful that you're not going to break the peg in the process too, because obviously you only get one peg. That is getting closer. Yes. Okay, so if you shimmy it a little bit, it should be good. And now I think we should have full range of articulation. Okay. So obviously, with this, right, the tail is not articulated in terms of like the actual tail itself, right? However, you can obviously get a ton of different like poses with the ball joint that is connected. And honestly, I think basically anything that you want. The plastic is also pretty like bendable too, so if you really wanted to bend it a little bit to try and get it into a little bit of a different shape, you absolutely could, but I think that the way that they have it there is just fine, and I think it looks good as it is. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the sculpt and the various different bends and boops that we have on this guy, because that is what I was really excited to take a look at today. So, of course, in terms of the overall sculpt, I really, really like this. Of course, obviously, it is hard to get a really good sculpt on a posable figure when you have all of these different gaps for all of the different bends and motions that they can do, right? However, I think that they absolutely knocked it out of the park on this guy. I think he has bend seams where they should be, and they don't look out of place, right? Like, you expect them to be there, and when you see a figure like this, you're like, yeah, okay, this bends here, you know, this bends like this, so on and so forth. But it doesn't, like, break your immersion of this being Super Saiyan 4 Goku as much for a posable figure, I feel. And I really, really like that about this figure. Again, they really did a good job in capturing his likeness. So, obviously, like we saw on the fur of the tail, the fur on his actual body does look very, very nice. I think in terms of my sculpt, the only thing that I think is kind of unfortunate is that obviously there is a little bit of paint sort of spillover from the skin part of his chest into the fur. It's not the worst, and it's really not that noticeable, to be honest with you, but it is just kind of unfortunate that it's there. But other than that, I can't really see any other mishaps. One thing to note in terms of the sculpt before we actually get onto the articulation is that the belt is a little bit loose, as you can see here, right? Like, I'm definitely moving it. I am honestly okay with this because I would honestly rather have it like this because I prefer it a little bit looser. Funny enough, you can actually see that there is no like plastic guarding where the joints meet for his legs and his upper torso, which is kind of funny. It's just covered by the belt. You can flip this all the way around if you really want to, right? Like I'm literally spinning this the full 360 degrees. There's not really a reason to, but I do like that this is loose because not only does it make it feel a little bit more natural for the figure, I feel like, you can also do a lot more articulation here because obviously then you're not worried about crunching hard plastic or scratching hard plastic. It is literally just rubbing up against this very soft, malleable piece of plastic here. So let's go ahead and actually take a look at the full range of the articulation on our man. So obviously we did take a look at the head a little bit earlier, but of course we have some very nice bend backwards and we have some very nice look forwards for my man. He can crunch pretty well, honestly, and obviously he can get into that full L pose as well in terms of, you know, looking like that. That is also, wow, that's certainly a pose I've never seen on an SH Figuarts figure before. That's an interesting pose for sure. Obviously, his torso can move around in a full 360 degrees, which the Obi belt does move with him. if you do decide to do that. His head can move in a full 360, though I wouldn't recommend it just because obviously you're going to have to maneuver the hair pieces around his shoulders, and honestly I wouldn't recommend that. Obviously, like we said, the hair pieces are articulated, which is super cool. If you wanted to get a very cursed, like, non-bangs Goku, maybe like an evil sort of Goku meme, you could do that. Obviously, the back of the hair also being articulated. Again, his head also can move back and forth really well. I'm kind of impressed with this, honestly. You can get some very nice, like, sort of neck motion there, which I think is really cool. Be careful, obviously, the faceplate coming out. You saw that mine was sort of beginning to pop out when I was messing with that a little bit, but obviously you can just push it back in and you're fine. Obviously, the arms are your basic SH Figuarts arms, although I will say we do have a lot of points of articulation here. Obviously, the elbow itself, the shoulder itself, rather, excuse me, moves. We have right here moving, and then we have obviously here giving you the motion of the bottom section of the arm, and then of course the hands do spin too, which is pretty cool. We also have a very nice butterfly joint here, which if we move Goku's head out of the way, you can see that that will also give you some nice range of motion there too, which is just a little bit of extra if you really want to push it. Obviously that does break the sculpt a little bit. Not literally break the sculpt, but of course, you know, break the sculpt in terms of posing. And it is nice how they did sculpt the skin on the front of this here, and they didn't just leave it fur. I do think that that is really cool. Obviously, for the pants, you can see that there is a little bit of... Oh, actually, I guess before we get to the pants, his chest can also move up and down, which is really cool. Obviously, you can use that to your advantage to give him some even more leaning over shenanigans. But if you just want to give a little bit more of like that ab showing, yeah, there you go. You can do that for yourself. But yeah, so for the legs here, let's go ahead and just lift his arms up one more time. You can see that the legs do look a little bit different from some of the past Goku sculpts, and I have to say, I am actually quite a fan of how they did the legs this time. This part does look a little bit weird with the bigger, I think those are ball joints? I'm honestly not too sure. However, with this part here, you can see that his pants actually look a lot more seamless. Ironically enough that there's technically a literal seam there, but in terms of it looking a lot more accurate to the character, I think that the pants look great. And that is in part due to the new joint system that they used on the knees. As you can see, this is something new to SH Figuarts, and I believe that this Goku actually is the first character to have this sort of sculpt for the pants. I don't think that this is technically a new body. However, I believe that this is like some 3.0 body shenanigans with these new pants sort of technology that they've added in here for Goku. And I actually really like, honestly, the look of this. Even though it does look a little bit weird when you're obviously fully extended here, I definitely don't think that that is the worst look. And especially when you're closing it up, it definitely looks really good. But yeah, you can get a ton of articulation on the legs. Sorry, I don't know why my camera is having so many issues right now. I guess it's overwhelmed by the presence of this figure. But yes, as I was saying before, he can do the full splits, which is really, really cool. Obviously, the leg can fully rotate around. You have a lot of articulation here where you can move this individual part of the leg, right? But then you can also move the entire chunk that is moving up against, which is really cool. Again, like I said, the knee has a lot of great articulation. There is some foot articulation as well, where you can go 360 on that, though I kind of wouldn't recommend it because it is a little bit of a tight one. And I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, that ankle pivot is pretty darn good, if I do say so myself. You can pull that out a little bit too and get a little bit of a better ankle pivot, but gosh dang, Goku, he's been working on that angle gang, or that ankle game, rather. That is pretty good, if I do say so myself. You can definitely feel the, like, pushing to the limit of the joints there. Very, very nice stuff. Obviously, I do definitely recommend, like, this side is a lot tighter in terms of the ankle joint. I definitely recommend when you're getting this guy in your hand, definitely play with all your joints a little bit, just to make sure that they're a little bit looser so that way you can actually pose them a little bit. Unfortunately, this part does not actually articulate, which, I mean, is fine. I don't really expect it to, but, you know, it would just be one more piece of articulation for this. And, of course, as per usual in classic SH Figuarts fashion, the toes do go up. Why you would ever use this with Goku, especially, because obviously it just completely breaks the sculpt, I don't really know, but it is an option there for you. So that is basically everything in terms of the articulation with this guy. Obviously, we already went over the tail. You can just kind of do your full 360 in and out shenanigans here. Definitely a very, very nicely articulated figure, if I do say so myself. I think they did a great job getting all the articulation points necessary. The only thing that I really don't like in terms of how he looks is this weird bottom sculpt. The camera doesn't like it either, apparently, because it's not focusing on it, but this looks like just a flap. Like, I really don't like this. And this is how it's sculpted, right? If we take a look, it is this very weird, like, you can see the joints from the legs there, but it's this very weird, like, seam and very flat. Like, they didn't round it out to make it kind of feel a little bit more, I don't know, natural, I suppose. It definitely doesn't feel very natural, even when you're just looking at it in, like, a static pose like this, for sure. Very weird that they sculpted it like that. Like, obviously, from the front, you're not really going to be looking like that or looking at that, but it's a 3D object, you know. You obviously want the whole thing to look good if you're going to be looking at it from all sides. So that is really the only thing that I would complain about with this guy. But for the price tag, which I believe is the standard SH Figuarts, like $60 price. By the way, I did get my copy of Tokyo Otaku Mode back when he was available for pre-order. I don't think that that's a deal breaker with the sculpt there, just kind of being a little bit lackluster on his bottom. The only other thing that I will say is lacking with him, honestly, would be that the articulation on here is, even though it's okay, and I wish there was a little bit more, I wish it would have been a little bit more of a tighter joint, because the joint in his actual pants connected to the tail is pretty good, but the ball joint then connected to the tail is very, very loose, as you can see. That is pretty droopy, unfortunately. I mean, it's not the worst, and you can still definitely get some good stuff out of it, but it's going to take a little bit to get used to it. And I'm sure that there probably is something that you can do to tighten that up a little bit, but unfortunately that is not my area of expertise. Alright, so before we get on to our size comparisons here, let's go ahead, we'll give him a little bit of pose in here, and then we will take a look at all of his hand options. Funny enough, speaking of which, he actually doesn't have a lot of pivot on his hands. Obviously there's the rotation, but you can't pivot them too much, and I know that other Gokus definitely have a lot more pivot to their name than this guy does, which is a little bit unfortunate, but that's okay. Man, I really like the look of this figure, though. I gotta say, I definitely think that they nailed the sort of GT aesthetic with this figure for sure. They definitely got his look down very, very well. Alright, so let's take a look at the other hand options that we have here. There are plenty of hands. This is honestly kind of overwhelming with how many there are. And the nice thing about this is, I mean, I suppose it's not nice that you can't exchange it with other Gokus, but obviously, because you have so many hand options, you have a lot of hand options for him. But obviously, we do have these two, I suppose you would call these instant transmission hands, right? The only unfortunate thing is you can't use them on other Gokus because obviously they have the Super Saiyan 4 fur, but I would rather that be there because obviously then that's more accurate to the anime, of course. So we have those hands there. We have the classic grippy hands, or I guess these would be like Final Flash hands. Obviously these are included with almost every Dragon Ball figure, and it kind of makes sense because this is like the hands that you would definitely be using to hold a Ki Blast in your hand. But obviously the hand sculpt on these always looks fantastic. Definitely no denying that. We also have the open palm hands. These are more like your big bang attack hands, I guess, if you had to compare them to something. But yeah, obviously just your standard open palms for the boy. Again, with the red on the back. Very, very nicely sculpted. Goku is trying to steal the limelight. I gotta cover him up with the hands. Then we have the famous Goku pose hands, where obviously he is squatted down. I suppose you could just call these fighting stance hands, which is basically what they are, but obviously they are sort of iconic with Goku's famous, like, kind of down-to-the-ground pose. And they also do include these, basically, in every single Dragon Ball, like, Saiyan human sort of figure. for SH Figuarts. And this is a very, very nice addition, and this will actually lead us into our final accessory that we have here, which is very, very cool that these are included. These, of course, being the Kamehameha grip hands. Back in the day, they would give you a Kamehameha ball, but these hands did not have a peg in it, so they basically just expected you to balance it in there, which is fine. But now that we have these hands, we can actually do a lot more really cool posing options with being able to shove the Ki Blast on it. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and take a look at this. This actually basically just looks like a piece of candy. Let me take this off camera and actually pour this out here real quick. It is very nice, very pink as well, which I definitely think fits with the color scheme of Goku here. Here is the little ball. It is very, very cool. I definitely like the look of this a lot. It really looks like a piece of candy. If you own this figure and you have kids, definitely keep this out of reach of kids, because if I was a child, I would absolutely be munching away on this bad boy. Alright, so let's go ahead and just take one of these hands. I don't know if it particularly matters. Yes, it does. Okay, so if you take a look, it might be a little bit hard to see, but you can see that on here, some of these holes, right, are a specific shape. And obviously the shape is sort of dependent on the shape of the end of how the Ki Blast, like, beams sort of go in here. But if we find your standard circle, which seems to be that one, I believe that should go on there. I'm sure it'll probably go in the other shape too if you really force it, but obviously you don't want to. And there you go. Now you have the Ki Blast in Goku's hand. Obviously, if you want to, let's see, which hand is this technically? That would be this hand, I believe. Unless the hands are... Wait, no. Apparently I just don't know how hands work. Let's go ahead and put it on this one. You literally just rip that bad boy off, and then you can just put it on there like so. I do think it is actually a little bit easier to put the hand on with the ball in his hand, just because then you have a little bit more grip, and because you have the whole ball to try and push it in with rather than just the hand. This is the one thing about SH Figuarts that I don't think they'll ever find a way to make easier, is trying to get those hands on there. But there you go. Now we have Goku simply holding a Ki Blast, which is really, really cool. That obviously you can just have him hold the ball if you want to, and you don't have to do a Kamehameha pose. And if you want to, obviously, you could just have him holding it like this, right? Rather than needing to balance it out in his hands and have him like hold it upside down. You can literally just have it in any pose that you want, you know, and it won't fall out of his hand, because obviously it is jammed into the peg, which is really, really cool if I do say so myself. And then, obviously, the final piece of this puzzle is, of course, these little doohickeys, which are these very chonky, very, very thick. I don't even know if I can really describe to you how thick these are, but these are pretty chonky compared to what SHF used to do. You can literally just take these, and then you can stick them in the ball. There is definitely some size, like specific holes, I think. I'll have to do this off camera and then show it to you. Now, I gotta say, once this thing is fully put together, holy cow, this thing is awesome. I was actually thinking that originally when putting this together, all of the pieces wouldn't be able to fit on here with it in his hand, but the boys over at Tamashii did a fantastic job at sculpting this bad boy, and actually all of the holes fit basically just perfectly around where his hand would be. There is a couple of points where obviously they're sort of gonna like bang into his hands there, because of course some of them are a little bit close, but overall I think that they did a fantastic job with this. The other thing that I will note is that there is only one hole to actually put it in his hand, so if you want to do an actual Kamehameha, right, and you want to kind of give him the proper Kamehameha look, you are probably going to have to take one of these hands, which is obviously just the regular open palm hand. Let me be careful not to knock this out of his hand. Those do stay in there pretty well, I will say, those beams. But the only thing is, obviously, there is only like a little bit of peg that they have. So I don't know how much I trust them to stay in, and that's not Tamashii, that's just my own paranoia. So yeah, because obviously there isn't a peg on the other side, you are probably going to have to maneuver this into a position that you would want. I hope that they sort of like allocated for having it fit into a position that would allow you to use the other hand for the Kamehameha, I assume that they would, like, basically allocate space for that. Let's just sort of do our best here to make this work. Obviously, I'm not a SH Figuarts posing expert. Yeah, okay, yeah, no, that's it, yeah. There you go, right there, basically. It's not perfect. Ooh, that would be a good reason to use that bang joint right there. I just kind of found one by accident, but yeah, there you go. You can do the Kamehameha, honestly, pretty well, if I do say so myself. Obviously, it is going to take a little bit of illusion. Oh, no, well, never mind. That actually fits, like, really perfectly. Obviously, you got to sort of maneuver the joints to how you want it so that it stays more in position like that. But you can definitely get a very solid Kamehameha pose out of this guy, which is really... Oh, wow, that looks awesome. I wish that it wasn't... the gap wasn't showing up enough or as much, but I think that's just because on my particular copy, the bangs are sort of loose. So you can kind of see that line, that seam line on his hair. But yeah, this is really cool. This is definitely a very solid looking figure, if I do say so myself. Let's go ahead and compare this guy now to some other figures. Alrighty, taking a look at our usual size comparison suspects here, we can see that Goku obviously isn't too terribly tall. Of course, he is a SH Figuarts figure, so he is in scale to the SH Figuarts line. I will say he definitely has a lot more heft about him in terms of his height, because of the big hair sculpt that is obviously pretty potent in terms of giving him a couple of extra inches. On the camera, it looks like he is about 6.5, honestly, which I would say, looking at it like this, I would say that it is more... I can lift this up for you and get maybe a little bit more of an accurate reading there. It kind of looks like he is a little bit more like 6.25, I think would be basically where my man is at in terms of the size game. So definitely not a too terribly sized figure. I cannot wait to see how he scales with some other figures, which, speaking of which, let me get the bad boys on the camera, of course, as we take these gentlemen off. The first figure that we have to compare him to, and we're just going to get all the boys up on the stage here, is the Raised on Earth Son Goku. Now, obviously, these two figures are definitely figures to pair together because, of course, they are both of ya boy Goku here. Both definitely fantastic looks for the character, and I think both are definitely very anime and manga accurate. I think SHF has done a fantastic job comparing these guys together and obviously giving us some fantastic versions of these characters in some very posable scenes together. Definitely some really cool shenanigans you could do with a bunch of different of Goku's transformations here on display with these guys for sure. As well, we also have another fairly big SH Figuarts figure. I'm going to bring the boy in here and sort of have him tower above the other two. Just bumping Goku already. We have the SH Figuarts Broly. Of course, this being the Fury Broly and not the Super Saiyan Broly, which I actually didn't know until recently, but they are actually re-releasing a bunch of the full power Super Saiyan and the Blue Gogeta, which is very, very cool, from the Broly movie SH Figuarts set that came out closer to when the movie was released. So I'm definitely going to be copping those because I've wanted to get those for a fat minute now. But yes, here is the boy Broly. Obviously, he is a lot taller than these guys, as you can see, as I've kind of put him back here. But to give you a little bit more size perspective, let's actually get him in the camera here. He's waving hello! You can obviously see that he pretty much towers over Goku, but these two definitely still look pretty cool together, and obviously you could get some sort of Dragon Ball Heroes multiverse shenanigans going on with Broly and Goku here. I definitely think that they look pretty cool together. And the final figure that I have for you today is another pretty big boy, another boy from the movie, and another boy I still need to actually edit the video for because I have filmed the video for the unboxing for this figure. I have just not actually taken the time to edit it yet. And of course, with this guy releasing, I was like, yeah, I think I kind of need to prioritize Super Saiyan 4 Goku over Cooler, as much as this figure is really, really cool. And definitely a gem of a SH Figuarts figure for sure. Had to bring him out though to compare with the rest of my SHF collection. I cannot wait personally to also get this guy with the Super Saiyan Blue Goku. I actually do have that guy in my possession. I have 2 copies of him, funny enough, because one was a gift and one I went out of my way to buy. So I may do a giveaway on that one, honestly. We'll have to see, but I will definitely be bringing Super Saiyan 4 Goku out once more when I eventually get that Super Saiyan Blue Goku figure out of the box. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Obviously, this is one of the most highly anticipated SHF figures, frankly, of all time, considering how long we've been waiting for him with those initial images that we saw all those years ago. If you have this figure, definitely let me know what you think of him in the comments section below. And if you would like to buy a copy for yourself, I will leave some links in the description below where you can do so. If you do pick him up from the old Amazon link in the description below, I will get a little bit of an extra cut with no extra cost to you, which is awesome. But obviously, please don't buy him if he is above full price, since this guy is not a premium Bandai exclusive, which is awesome, because that means he won't be upcharged for no particular reason when he is basically just the same amount of accessories and posability as any other SH Figuarts figure. Looking at you, Vegito Blue. I know he had a couple of extra accessories, but still, you can obviously just pick this guy up from basically any website because he's not restricted to just premium Bandai. So you'll love to see it, especially when a figure is this hyped up as Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you all in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace. Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are